Hey everybody, welcome to Hit Rewind. This episode's another perfect concert playlist where we choose 3 artists, sometimes 2 if they have a huge catalog of songs to choose from. So this episode, Ron and I, my co-host, have chosen bands around colors. And this was a little more torturous than I thought it would be. I mean, and it was a last minute change because I realized I was being a doofus. So, we tossed around some ideas, but a lot of them were just the one-hit wonders, or just 1 or 2 songs, and we would just choose the same thing. And then for a while I had Pink Floyd in here, but I realized that's such a huge mistake. That's more of a Kings of Prog Rock episode where we do Rush and Yes and Pink Floyd. The flow of sound did not go with this, and I realized being so stupid, because we talked about it, and I said no, like a doofus. Rainbow is a perfect connection to Deep Purple and Blue Oyster Cult, especially when I found out that Richie Blackmore was the guitarist in the beginning for Deep Purple, so of course that's the flow that we should have gone with this, and the sound's more similar, yeah.
I agree. Pink Floyd would have been I was trying to sit down and do this. I'm like, man, this is just such a genre, kick in the pants.
Yeah. And then I think I said something about, oh my God, David Coverdale was also in, I think, Deep Purple or Blue Oyster Cult. I think it was Deep Purple for a little bit. No. He was a singer in Rainbow, and he had a band called White Snake. And you're like, okay, dude, we gotta stop. I was like, okay, I can get out of control.
Yeah, I was gonna say we were just talking about this with my daughter today when I was going through some things. It's very much, and I don't know if it's like that today, and maybe it is, we just don't see it as often, but back in the 70s and the 80s and even into the 90s, there was a big family of musicians, and they kept jumping around, whether they failed or, failed project or whatever, and they're just moving on to something else, or they're just filling in for, hey, I've got this gig going, would you mind stepping on us, AKA Damn Yankees,
Right, yeah.
It's really neat when you dig into the family tree of all of it.
It's happened a few other times. There was that super group revival around 2003 or 4 when we had Rage Against the Machine and Chris Cornell from Soundgarden, and they did Audio Slave. And I remember there was one with some guys from Guns N' Roses and the lead singer of Stone Temple Pilots, Chickenfoot with Sammy Hagar and Michael Anthony and some other guys. It was a small revival, but it didn't really take off.
No. Unfortunately, I get a lot of the people out there, especially the diehard fans, they know them from this, and this, and it's really hard to see them in anything else.
Yeah.
Because all you can hear, when you hear Sammy Hagar is, even though Hagar was his own thing before Van Halen, you've got 2 camps there.
Right, because he was in Montrose, and then he went solo for a few years, and then joined Van Halen. Mm-hmm. I like both versions of Van Halen, by the way. I don't understand this. It either needs to be David Lee Roth or Sammy Hagar. I'm like, it's called the best of both worlds for a reason, bro. I never listened to the third version, though.
I probably lean more towards the former than the latter, but I do like them both.
Yeah. All right, so let's get to the task at hand. We have 20 songs. We have 3 bands. You're going first. Who is opening your concert?
Who's opening my concert? I'm going to have to say Deep Purple's going to be last. So,
okay.
In my opinion, they're the big one here. So maybe... honestly, when you look into this, it's kind of a toss-up between Blue Oyster and Rainbow because, they both have their own thing. Rainbow was big earlier on, but Blue Oyster Cult became a bigger thing in their time. So I'm just going to pick one, and there's really no rhyme or reason behind it. So we're going to start off with Blue Oyster Cult. And I'm going to say I had a little bit of an issue with this one because I honestly didn't know a whole lot from them. I knew the big ones, and that's probably what's going to be here for the most part. But I did manage to find 10, and I did manage to find more than that. I was worried I wasn't going to be able to whittle it down.
Yeah,
whittle it up, rather.
when I first suggested this, I assumed the Blue Oyster Cult was going to be the big one for me. All the choices were going to be that band. And I just went through album after album, and I really was I only like the songs that were fairly well known already by myself. And so, surprisingly, who I thought would be closing the concert is also my opener with the fewest amount of songs. So go ahead. What are your Blue Oyster Cult choices?
I say Don't Fear the Reaper. Godzilla would be number 2. Well, actually, no particular order here. Cities on Flame with Rock and Roll. That's a fun one. Train True. This is one that I didn't know about until I started going into this list, and it's called Lenny's Song. And I need to do some research in this. I don't know, is there a Lenny in the group, or is this a tribute to Lenny? But it's really fun and wacky. So to me, it doesn't sound like a Motorhead, type of thing. So I don't know about that one, but I will look into that one. Number 5 would be Burning for You. Dancing in the Ruins. I hear that every day on my playlist on my bus. Make Rock Not War. That's a new one to me. The Vigil, In Thee, and Take Me Away.
Okay. And, you covered most of the songs that I chose. Nothing really surprising. I only had 5 choices. I'm starting off with Don't Fear the Reaper. I figured that's kind of a slow build-up and kind of wake up the audience. Then I'm going Godzilla, which is a fun, just an audience stomper. A deeper one from the movie Heavy Metal. Terrible movie, by the way. As an adult, you realize this is trash. Great soundtrack, though. It really it is. It's inconsistent animation, and it's really just there for teenage boys to ogle. Back when we couldn't get access to boobies as easily, so... But Veteran of the Psychic Wars, I think, is a phenomenal song. Probably their last great album. Cities on Fire with Rock and Roll, and then just ending it with Burnin' For You. I've always thought that Burnin' For You would make a really good ska cover. If you pick up the beat just a little bit and add horns, I think that'd be a great ska cover.
You have horn friends? Because I want to hear that.
I wonder if anybody's ever done that. I should look it up. There's been a ska cover of that. All right, so I had a lot less than you did. What is your second band?
To be honest, friends, I had 5 songs on this, and then I had to move on to the other ones because I couldn't really come up with any more. But when I sat down and actually really listened to it, I found quite a few more that I actually dig. Number 2 on my list would be Rainbow, and I have Stargazer. Lots of fun. Stone Cold is actually the first one I ever come to when I think of Rainbow. Don't know why that song sticks in my head. There are so many other good songs by him. Long Live Rock and Roll. I Surrender. Anybody There is an instrumental. There's actually 2 instrumentals on this particular album that I liked, but I had to keep it at 10, so I picked this one out of the 2, but they both would have been fine. Honestly, I think you could have put them both together and had a nice 7-minute or 8-minute long just jam session.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the songs are like prog rock almost in their length.
Yeah. What I listened to we were listening to Rainbow today, and I was digging through, what's it called? Something Child. I can't remember the name of the song offhand, but it's like 10 minutes long. I was telling my daughter, I'm like, this is the 70s. This is the epitome of the 70s. Nobody knew how to write a 4-minute song. Beatles were the last ones that did them, and they did them like 2 and 3 minutes long. You could fit 4 albums on an audio cassette. But when the 70s rolled around, everything's laid back, and I just don't know how to end the song. I'm just jamming, leave me be, And I love it, honestly, as long as they're good instrumentalists. But let's see, number 6 on this list. A Light in the Black. Death Alley Driver is a fun one. Probably not one you want to drive to because you could probably get in trouble.
Yeah.
Fool for the Night, Power, and Danger Zone.
So it turns out we had more songs by Rainbow than we both expected. I did not expect to get 9 songs.
9?
Yeah. How many did you have?
I had 10.
Oh, see, I
whittled it down a little bit. But that being said, my stepdad loved Rainbow.
Oh, okay. How many songs total do you have?
He had a couple of albums there. But what?
How many songs total do you have?
Total? I managed to get 31.
Total. Oh, okay. I just did 20. So we're going Rainbow next. I'm just going to open with the one that everybody knows, just to warm people up. Man on the Silver Mountain, I think it's just like, oh yeah, yes. Hey, Long Live Rock and Roll. Temple of the King is fantastic, and it's been stuck in my head for 4 days, so it's almost that point where it's no longer fantastic, where I'm a little annoyed.
That one barely just made it barely got pushed off my list.
Yeah.
That was at number 10 for a long time, and then I found another one. So,
The Black Sheep of the Family is number 4. Do You Close Your Eyes is number 5. A Light in the Black is number 6. Lady of the Lake is number 7. Gates of Babylon is number 8. And Kill the King I thought was a great song to end it with.
I forgot about Lady of the Lake.
I feel like this is where sword and sorcery music really starts.
Yes. Well, this is like... I was really into Manowar in high school, so that's where the sword and sorcery... I didn't realize that it started earlier in that.
Yeah, I mean, there's hints of it. I guess technically it probably would start with... Well, Dio had a band in 68 called Elf that lasted like 3 albums before they morphed into Rainbow. Most of the members went over to that. But there was also, like, if you listen to the first few albums by Black Sabbath, there is some of it there, like The Wizard, but that just seems like an anomaly. This is where it's, like, thematically seems like it's heavy into fantasy.
Yeah. I think that's a running theme in the 70s.
Well, yeah, it was a phenomenon because it's the revival of Conan and Lord of the Rings. And then we almost had Dune movie in the 70s. And then we just started getting, like, more fantasy and comic books and stuff like that because movies couldn't afford it. Not until the 80s, and still, some of that's questionable, people. But yeah, by like 82, though, it exploded, and all of a sudden sword and sorcery's everywhere for a while. And it comes and goes. It's kind of like werewolf movies, you know, those have like all of a sudden there's a bunch of werewolf movies and then there's none, and the finding a good sword and sorcery movie is about as easy as finding a good werewolf movie. This is very easy.
Now listening through all these, there was one particular song, and I can't remember which group it is offhand. I've been listening to so many in the last couple of weeks, but the song itself dealt with a vampire and losing his love. He lost his love through some tainted blood or something along those lines. Takes a minute or two before you realize they're talking about a vampire.
So it's about
among mortals for 200 years.
Yeah. When you said tainted blood, I went, oh, tainted blood, tainted blood. Don't bite me, please, 'cause I don't want to have to bleed. I hate you when you bite me so. I'll stop now.
Sung in the style of Robert Goulet in Vegas. Anyway.
That's literally the only way I can sing is like a lounge singer. I have no idea how to sing. I don't have the lung capacity.
It's alright, man.
Her name is Rio and she dances on the sand. Hey, waiter, what's the special for tonight? Yeah.
Don't forget Tippy Witches.
Alright, so Deep Purple.
Deep Purple. This one, I could go on forever, but I had to narrow it down. So, Black Knight, Soldier of Fortune. Absolutely love that one. Perfect Strangers. Of course, the age-old Smoke on the Water. This one's fun for me because I came into the room, this was last year, I think, at some point, and my son was in the loft playing around on my electric, his electric he had, and he was trying to do the
A-B-A. That's like the song everybody learns in the beginning.
Oh, that's great. Anyway, Highway Star, Burn, Hush. Sorry.
Well, you know what's funny is I didn't know that was a Deep Purple song. The first time I had ever heard that song was a cover on the first Scream soundtrack.
Scream?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, there's a cover on the very first album. Or soundtrack, you know. Yeah.
Space Truckin' would have been number 9 for me. Lazy. This is one of those long ones I was talking about. It's very much lazy. Because I was playing around with this one trying to determine whether I wanted to throw it in there or not. I'm like, you know what? In a concert setting, it's perfect.
Yeah.
They come out on stage or, after a break or whatever, and they start playing this 4-minute long or whatever it is. I can't remember. Just nothing but instrumental. And then they start singing. you're like, oh, there are lyrics to this song.
That's what it is with Rainbow. You sit there sometimes waiting. I was like, is this purely instrumental? In the last minute, they throw in lyrics. You're like, oh no, I guess not.
Oh, guess we're not done. It sounded like it, but no. And then, that's number 10, but I actually threw Mean Streak on there too because I love that one. And they'd be my headliner anyway, so
yeah,
I think I have one or two encores anyway. So
yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, I think I would, if you consider how many songs I chose, I guess Rainbow would be the headliner since they have the most songs. But no one's going to go see a concert, I think, that Rainbow is the headliner. They want to see the other two bands. The other two bands were much bigger. But, so my Deep Purple list is pretty short, too. Just like Blue Oyster called it. It's Highway Star, Perfect Strangers, Black Knight, Hush. And I think the only one that you didn't have was Throw the Bones or Throw My Bones. And then ends with Space Truckin', which is a badass song. The first time I had ever heard that song was in the trailer for that Ash vs. Evil Dead TV show.
Yes.
And I don't think it was their version. I think it was a cover because it seemed like it was really intense, but it wasn't far off from the original.
Who was it that did crap? Was it Rainbow or Blue Oyster Cult? I think it was Blue Oyster Cult. Somebody, I don't know. They covered Roadhouse Blues. I was listening to this.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure that was. Albums. I'm pretty sure it was Blue Oyster Cult. They did an album I think like 8 years ago where it's covers.
It was really good. I liked it. I wanted to throw it on there, but I had to make a choice between their song and someone else's. So.
Yeah. Well, what's shocking about this is that Blue Oyster Cult has never lost a single member of their band. I think it's still the original lineup, and no one's defected to go start another band. Deep Purple's a little more fractured, but it's still essentially the same core guys still together after all this time. Rainbow, of course, right. Rainbow struggled because after the first, I think, 3 albums, they lost Dio over to Black Sabbath, and then they got David Coverdale for a couple albums, but then lost him. And then, like in 80 or 81, they decided to become like almost like a new wave band. They had a big hit with Since You've Been Gone. Which I didn't really care for. I mean, it's a nice song, but it didn't really fit in with the rest of the stuff because it felt like it was Identity Crisis kind of sound. I mean, they're not the only ones. Alice Cooper went new wave for 2 albums in the early 80s as well. And
yeah.
And then he decided that he wanted to do he has a whole other band, I can't remember what it's called, like Richie Blackmore's Night, I think it is. Or Black Knight or something like that, where it's more almost like, what do you call it, like ethereal kind of medieval music with his wife.
With his wife?
I'm pretty sure it's his wife. So they have had a band for like the last decade where it's mostly just like this medieval, what do you call that stuff? That kind of music. Doggone it. The guy, what's the guy that goes around with a little guitar? And,
Are you talking about like, not Renaissance,
but it's not far off from that. But there's a word for
those
it.
Kinds, yeah.
Yeah.
I can't get off it. Is it called Blackmore's Night?
Yes.
Okay. Christmas themed album. Oh, interesting.
But it's like it has like this Celtic medieval infusion. But what minstrel? Is that what it is? Minstrel? No.
The problem with us trying to figure this out is there's probably 15 subgenres for the one we're trying to figure out.
Yeah. But every time you go to a Renaissance fair, there's always a group of people singing this stuff, and and you're like, oh, that's cute, but it's not. It's so weird that he wanted to do something like this, but I'm guessing it's just like, hey, I was already singing about like sword sorcery stuff anyway, so there might be an audience there, and if his wife's the singer, I can see that.
I mean, honestly, it's not unbelievable outside the realm of possibility for things like that, because you'd be amazed at how many different styles of music certain people, the heaviest of rockers that you grew up with, playing jazz. I mean, there were jazz, they're classically trained, or they sit down and play Bach all day long and love it.
Okay, so here it is.
I get it as a musician, because I mean, for most of my childhood, I was pretty pigeonholed in what I listened to. Because it was pretty much down to what I was surrounded with.
Well, yeah, I mean, we lived in a
school,
small town, and we didn't have access to a lot of music. At best, we had MTV, but that always played the same stuff unless you waited up late at night to watch, that alternative show or Headbangers Ball or whatever. you didn't really get anything that wasn't part of the mainstream.
Yeah. So that's where I was lucky with Thane in my life, because he had a nice little eclectic mix of albums there.
He had I've seen the album collection. I remember like being introduced. A lot of it was just like we're looking at the album covers. We're like, oh my god, look at this artwork. We got to check this out.
Let me get up. Some of the artwork didn't really match the music.
No, I was still like, whenever I remember. Now Molly Hatchet, of course, had a couple big hits or whatever. But when I saw that album cover, I was like, oh my god, I got to see this. And I was like, there's no sword and sorcery in this. Darn.
There's none.
Yeah, bummer.
But
yeah, our choices were limited, but now we get more expansive. What I love is that you can go on a music host, like the one that we use. There's Apple and Spotify and all that stuff. Tune in, where you can choose an artist, and then it either makes a playlist for you around that, and you discover some people you didn't really know, or it'll give you like these little panels if you like this band or in relation to this band, and it'll show you other bands, and that helps a lot actually with the search for our show when we're trying to team up artists.
Yeah.
And so the new generations get to discover music that way too.
Yeah, we're definitely this generation of kids has no idea.
Well, this generation kids apparently doesn't like rock and roll. I don't understand. There's no new rock and roll bands that have made any sort of headway since Imagine Dragons, and that was a decade ago.
It's like, let's see. Yeah, Imagine Dragons would be the one I'm definitely say in that realm, but I want to say Muse, but they're...
Yeah, Muse is older, though. Muse is around, I don't know, 7 years earlier than Imagine Dragons?
Yeah.
So we're talking almost every single band that can fill our arena have gray hair. Where are the kids? The kids out of the garages, that were kicking butt. It's been decades, I feel like, since kids are like, yeah, I'm going to rock and roll. But now it seems like they're isolated and they're just making music on their laptop and sending it out instead of like getting together in a, like I said, a garage or like you in band class.
That's honestly what really opened up everything for me. Getting in band, deciding to get back into band, because I had actually quit. When I got to high school, they said, you either march or you're not in band. And I said, oh, see ya.
Oh, okay.
But somebody talked me back into it, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because from that point on, my music, whatever you want to call it, horizons were broadened. And I'm glad, I won't look back. It's the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Yeah. Well, and we all had like that one friend that always had weirdo taste. They were always the ones that were like going to the city to go to a record shop to find all sorts of unusual stuff. And we had that with like Aaron Hawley, where he was like, this is ska. And you're like, what's ska? And he's like, you don't know about, or that or punk or just alternative stuff. And then all of a sudden radio kind of caught up in 96 and started playing the stuff that was a little more offbeat and changing, because for the longest time all we had was heavy metal and grunge, which grunge kind of is heavy metal. It's just stripping away a lot of the excess.
Yeah, and it's a little more angsty.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, there's no one talking about partying all night. But yeah, I think the 70s still is considered the greatest era for rock for a lot of people. I mean, kids today, they kind of tap out. I see it all the time in my job, because we have a lot of teenagers come in and work out, and they're wearing Nirvana, they're wearing Guns N' Roses and stuff like that. And it feels like around 95, music just tapped out for a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm amazed at some of the kids that get on the bus wearing the bands that we grew up with. But I shouldn't be amazed, honestly, because what I knew is what my parents knew.
Right, because,
right?
Well, I remember when, like, in middle school and high school, we started discovering the 60s and 70s music. So we're wearing Led Zeppelin, The Doors, and stuff like the CCR.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But other than that, I think...
It's new again.
Yeah. So I guess that's the end of this episode. We're going to do a little kind of curve in the road over to funk and soul for a couple episodes. We picked, 6 or 7 bands, and we're going to kind of make a list out of those and then go right. I think after that we should do the Kings of Prog Rock. I think it's time for Pink Floyd, and what was the other one? Oh, Rush.
That stupid joke I was saying. Who's on stage? Yes. Also, Yes is on stage. No, The Who.
The Who? Well, also the Guess Who. Wait, huh? Yeah, well, you saw I did that sketch. I did that sketch as my own version of Who's on First because it was the bands The Who, The Guess Who, Yes, The, and I think there was another one in there. The Band.
The band.
Who's up there? The Band. Yeah, which band? The Band. Who? No, who's on next? Who was on first? Who was on first? Well, who's after them? Yes. That's what I'm asking you. Or something.
Anyway.
Yeah.
We segued.
All right, we're off. We'll see you later. Have a good night.
Have a good one.
I should stop saying have a good night because I have no idea when you're listening to us. Happy listening or something.
That works.